Meanwhile, when it comes to immigration detention hearings in Minnesota federal courts, Lisa has been part of the MS Now team reviewing those cases. And of the 61 that came before judges last week, the Department of Justice and Immigration Enforcement lost all but one. So, Lisa, what are we talking about specifically here? What kind of cases are these?
We're talking about what's called habeas cases, and technically that means basically a petition to be released. We're talking about immigrants who were detained, almost all of them as part of Operation Metro Surge. And our colleague Fallon Gallagher and I had this idea. We know that what's been happening on the streets of Minnesota is extraordinary. And we have seen some high-profile cases, including the one brought by Minnesota and the Twin Cities, to block the continued operation of Metro Surge. But what else is going on in those courts? So we took a look at the habeas cases decided over a one-week period. As you noted, there were 61 of them. In 60 of them, the immigrants won. And what they won was either their release in 40 of these cases, or they got an order from a judge saying, you have to have a bond hearing for these people. If you don't have a bond hearing, you must release them in X number of days in some of the cases. But 40 of the cases, 40 of these 61 cases, you have federal district judges in Minnesota saying this person must be released. Why? Because either there was no administrative or judicial warrant when you arrested them, you didn't give them the hearing to which they were entitled by due process. And in many of the cases that we saw, Willie, I think these are the most heartbreaking of all. People had reason to be in the country lawfully. We found one case of someone who is a DACA recipient. That's the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, or the Dreamer cases. We had one DACA recipient. We had someone who had a determination that they were a victim of violence under the Violence Against Women Act and therefore had authorization to work and remain in the country lawfully. We also found instances where people were taken literally as they were going to pick up medication. There was one woman, a Kenyan woman, went to a CVS to pick up her seizure medication, taken right there. And in all of these cases, judges of both political stripes, of varied professional backgrounds, are saying this is enough, this may not happen. We were shocked at both the quantity and the results of this body of cases.
And Lisa, it's so important to highlight these individual cases, these human stories, as you say, to put a real face on what is happening there. But also there is the big picture matter about challenges to whether ICE even has constitutional authority to be in the state of Minnesota right now. Where does that stand? These are big sweeping cases that pit feds versus state.
So, as you noted, there is this one case before Judge Kate Menendez, one of the same judges who decided these immigrant petitions that we were looking at. That is still pending. The state and the Twin Cities have asked her for a temporary restraining order to block ICE from continuing the operation of Metro Surge, and barring that, to put a bunch of limits around what ICE and CBP can do on the streets as they're continuing that operation. Last night was the last opportunity for them to put in papers before her. She had asked for some supplemental briefing after a multi-hour oral argument earlier in the week. We expect that we could get a decision, Jonathan, as early as today. But she said earlier in this week, please do not mistake the time I take writing this opinion for any less of a sense of urgency on my part. Because it's so important that I get it right, I am going to take the time I need to make sure that I do.
Lisa, on these 60-some cases that you looked at in Minneapolis, I'm just looking down a list of them, and we're talking about procedural matters of no warrants and not acting correctly, but also it's just underlines the point that they're not going after the worst of the worst, as promised. These are not, this list anyway, these are not murderers and rapists. No. These are DACA recipients. These are asylum seekers. This is a Kenyan woman going to CVS to get her seizure medication. The list goes on and on and on. This is not a list of the worst of the worst.
Yeah, I was going to say, we found one case where the judge said no. And that was a case where the person had come here lawfully, they had refugee status, they had entered the United States legally, and then they committed real crimes. They had convictions for aggravated robbery and for first-degree assault. That is a person to whom the judge said, no, I'm not going to release you. What is going on here is, in fact, lawful and constitutional. But by and large, repeatedly, we see situations where the judges are saying no criminal history. The circumstances of the person being taken off the street is not lawful. To me, this underscores much of what we are seeing from our reporting on the streets and what we're hearing from the men and women on the street that folks like Alex Tabbitt and Jacob Soboroff have been talking to when they say they're out on the street protesting because ICE is doing something wrong in their community. This body of cases seems to underscore that point.
Great reporting here. Thanks so much for bringing it to us. MS Now senior legal reporter Lisa Rubin. Thank you. MS Now investigative reporter Mark Santia. thank you for reporting as well.